I'm Jen, and this is Prague, the heart of Europe and my adopted home. Subscribe to get an American's take on this enchanting city and all things Czech. Welcome to the adventure. Ahoj všichni. One of the things that took Hansa and me a long time to figure out was how to actually buy things in this country. It seems so obvious now, but when you first arrive, you realize that it's very different from how and where we buy things in America. I'm talking about food and basic home supplies. So in this video, I'm going to give the tourist or the new expat tips on where to buy things in this country. I've put all the stores I talk about in this video in a Google map, which you can download from the link in the description box below. It might come in handy if you're visiting Prague and definitely if you're moving here. But first, I want to thank this week's sponsor, italki, for helping to keep this channel alive. And I also have to make a bit of a confession to you guys. I've been terrible about keeping up with my Czech language studies in the past month and a half. I have so many other things I'm working on. I have fitness goals. I'm planning to run a half marathon at the end of this summer with Hansa. I've got business goals. I've got lots of projects I'm working on for this channel. And I have language goals, but they're not really concrete, right? I'm trying to become fluent. Maybe I'd like to pass some level exam, but they don't have the concreteness of a half marathon. The most progress I've ever made in learning Czech was last autumn when I signed up for the italki language challenge, and I challenged myself to 3 lessons a week, and I completed the challenge, and my progress was phenomenal. My vocabulary improved so much. My listening improved so much. All of a sudden, I could understand people on the street. I could understand television shows. And the best part about the challenge was that it was a concrete, attainable goal, much like a marathon for Czech studies. Well, fortunately for us, italki is hosting the Summer italki Language Challenge starting right now. So if you want to kickstart your language studies with me, you can check it out at the link below. The challenge is also available on the italki app, and contestants can win prizes from $500 worth of italki credits to free language tests to italki badges and more. If you're a goal-oriented person like me, this might be the best way to kickstart your Czech language learning or English language learning or any of the other 130 languages you can find on italki. If this gets you excited about language learning, then check out the link below. Okay, back to the video. In the United States, we are used to very big stores that have almost everything you need. So I'm speaking about a Walmart, a Costco, Target especially. And that is just not the situation here. You do not just go to one store to buy everything you need. Actually, when we have a shopping list, we end up going to 6 or 7 stores to get it all done. My first month in Prague, I lived in Žižkov and I lived above Potraviny. The Czechs are probably like, I'm sorry, what did you call it? So it's a večerka. This is what the Czechs call it, which is like a convenience store. I don't know why all the Americans call it a potraviny. That word is on the sign. It means like groceries, but I think the first expat who ever got here started calling it that and just like spread the misinformation, so we all call it the potraviny. America has convenience stores, but I think in LA, most of them are part of a chain, so they're like 7-Eleven or AM/PM, and the goods are very similar. You don't find like, ooh, look at this new type of chip I've never seen before. But here, the potravinis are the večerky are individually owned, so you get kind of a different selection at different ones. This can be anything from just alcohol. This place just specializes in alcohol and cigarettes. It's almost like a tabac. And some of them have a great selection of fruits and vegetables. Some have like a little bit of milk and cheese and yogurt. So you kind of get a feel for which ones have the best stuff that you need. And I think this is specific to Prague. We were once in Vienna and we were dying of thirst and could not find a convenience store. We were walking for kilometers. And in Prague, there is a večerka on like every block, sometimes two. So it's really convenient. So of course we have supermarkets here. These are like your basic B. In California, we have Ralph's and Safeway, kind of like your standard grocery store. Now, on the outskirts of Prague, there's hypermarkets. I don't know, I assume that hyper is bigger than super, but hypermarkets, we never shop at those because we're not taking the metro to get groceries. No, we don't do that. So in our general neighborhood, we've got like a big Albert and a little Albert. Albert is a Dutch store. We've got a big Billa and a little Billa, that is an Austrian store, and Tesco. We've got big Tesco and little Tesco, that is a British store. We call them little Tesco or little Albert because they're just smaller. Even though they're smaller, they're gonna have meat, dairy, bread, cereal, pasta, vegetables, basically everything you need if you're not super choosy about having a wide variety. And I've gone 6 months at a time only going to the little versions of the store. I only go to the big ones if I want like a certain type of ice cream or a certain brand of something. In the US, we have a store called Whole Foods, and we all refer to it as Whole Paycheck because it's quite expensive. This is owned by, I guess it's owned by Amazon now, so Bezos. And it is sort of everything is bio, which means organic, and you go in there for, some specialty something, and then you look around and you're like, oh, they have everything else on my list. I'll just shop here. And then you pay, and it's like double or triple the price of what you would pay at the basic supermarket. So we do have some stores like that. I would say Del Mart is similar to that. They've got some nice prepared food that you can get. Like I'd go there to get something at lunch when I'm working, or some like more specialty items, more specialty coffees or desserts or stuff like that. There's also a Marks and Spencer potraviny or small grocery store, and that's going to be more expensive, but they're going to have some like cool English type specialties. There are also a lot of what I would call bio potraviny. Bio is the European way of referring to organic food. So these will not necessarily be bio fruits and veg, but they'll be like packaged goods, like 17 different type of non-wheat flours and all these like beans you didn't know existed, and like all these fancy healthy ingredients that you've never heard of that's on some recipe you're trying to make. Prague also has a growing number of package-free stores attempting to get the plastic out of our daily lives, where you can bring your refillable jars, bottles, and bags and fill up on nuts, flours, detergent, freshly made peanut butter, and even kimchi. So we do most of our grocery shopping at, I would say, Albert and Tesco, the basic grocery stores. But if you're looking for higher quality, whatever, there are lots of specialty shops. So if Hansa wants some special chicken or meat or something, he'll go to the rzeźnictwie, which is a butcher. And there are many butchers, I would say like 3 or 4 within a few blocks of our house. If we want any cheese that's not like Edam or basic cheddar, we will go to a sirarna, which is a cheese shop, and I can think of 2 in my neighborhood. Fish is something we don't have a ton of access to, like quality seafood. There's a great little shop in Jerzak called Seafood, and they have, kind of spendy oysters that we got for our anniversary, or some like specialty fish. Maybe we'll treat ourselves to some sushi, and they have really nice quality fish. They also have excellent cheese. They import a lot of French and Dutch cheese. And if you want some fresher, higher quality bread, you go to the pekarstwie, which is the bakery. And I can think of about 3 or 4 in a few couple blocks around here. One thing we really missed when we first moved here was ethnic food, sort of non-Czech food, just to mix things up a bit. In California, we essentially take all of the ethnic cuisine from all the immigrants and just like call it California cuisine. And so we really missed that when we got here. And I think the first shop I found that sold like hummus and falafel was Chez Ami on Spalina. And I remember telling everyone I met, like, oh, there's hummus, you can go to this shop. And then I start to realize there's more of these type of specialty shops and more started to open. So there are some really good Asian shops where there's just tons of imports of Asian food. Shin Foods on Kruni is a really good one we like to go to. And there's also a few shops that specialize in Indian imports. And a lot of the večerky, the convenience stores, are owned and operated by Vietnamese people. And so they have a lot of sort of Vietnamese packaged goods, maybe some other types of fruits and vegetables that aren't sort of typical Czech. And so it's good to try all the different večerky and see like what they have at the different ones. There are also večerky, it sounds weird, potraviny, that specialize in fruits and vegetables. So it'll say zelenina a ovoce on the front, and there's generally a lot of good quality fruit and vegetables in there. You kind of have to get a feel for like, oh, that one always has ripe avocados, and this one has like fresh coriander when you can't find it anywhere else. And my favorite zelenina a ovoce, that's literally all they sell, and it's a Czech-run place down the street. And they have a ton of variety. Like if it's in season, they've got it there. So that's pretty much the only place I get my fruits and vegetables. Prague has some really great farmers markets. I actually don't end up buying a lot of fruits and vegetables there as much as I go for the products. Like they will have stands that sell Czech pickles or, you know, cheeses, local delicacies, local like kolač. And so we kind of make an event of going to a farmer's market to try some of the like produced food and get a juice or a beer or something, sometimes even wine that they're selling there. And we've got one at Ipe Pavlova, and it is open, I think, every weekday, and they've got basics there. The one at Jirzák is open Wednesdays through Saturdays, I believe, and Plavka is like the big one on the river, Saturdays. It's a total scene and a total zoo, but it's really fun, and it's a great place to spend your Saturday morning. You just have to kind of get there early before the crowds come. One thing I forgot to mention was Košík and Rolík, which are online food delivery services, and they source their groceries from different stores, so you can get the basics from Kaufland and delicacies from Delmart and even locally grown produce. This was popular even before the pandemic, and although there's a small service fee, sometimes you just want the groceries brought to your door. So you can buy alcohol in these potraviny, which is where most people buy it. You can also buy it in the grocery store. In California, you can really buy like a ton of variation of beers at convenience stores. But here, you're really only going to get like the basics, like Pilsner and Budvar, Krušovice. But we do have bottle shops. So bottle shops are generally attached to a pub. Sometimes they're separate, and that they have a huge selection of like hipster beer that Hansa and I like to drink from different Czech breweries like Zihovec and Matuška. And so we like to get our beer sometimes there. Okay, so that covers food, which is the bulk of where we spend our money. But if you're looking for things that we would find in an American supermarket, like shampoos and diapers, toilet paper, creams, or cleaning products, it's gonna be hard to get what you want at a typical grocery store here. There might be one option for shampoo, one brand of cream. So these, I was always like just buying the one thing they had. I didn't know where else to get all of these other things. So they have what are called drogheries. And these are generally Teta, DM, and in these shops you will find the wide assortment of, cheapy makeup, shampoos, conditioners, creams, nail polishes, this type of stuff, things for raising babies, diapers, creams, all sorts of things like that, and detergents, cleaning supplies. This is what you will find at a drogerie. But you won't find drugs, oddly. You might find like medicated ointment or maybe like some medicated tea, but the druggery is not where what we think of in America, which is like the NyQuil and Tylenol and over-the-counter medication. You do not get that at a druggery. So next layer of confusion. Those things you will find at the lekarna, or the pharmacy. And it's not like in America where you can just like go to the open aisles and sort of self-diagnose and just pick out like extra strength, this ought to knock me out. Instead, what you do is you actually get the over-the-counter medication from the woman behind the counter. So you can either, one, have a prescription from a doctor for something, two, know exactly what you want and request it if it's not prescription strength, or three, you have to describe your symptoms to them, which can be embarrassing depending on what's wrong with you. I've only ever been given just like, I talked about this in another video, I've only ever been given just like freaking herbal drops. It was like, I swear I had COVID. I had the worst cough of my life. I hope I wasn't the one to bring it to this country, but like I was dying and they gave me some like eucalyptus drops. I mean, I was practically drinking the whole thing and it did nothing. So that's a different topic, but when you have symptoms, you go to the lekarna and ask them for some sort of medicine for yourself. And the last thing that was really kind of complicated and hard to sort out was we didn't know where to buy light bulbs. First of all, light bulbs seem to pop all the time. I don't know if they're like not great quality or the ones we were buying aren't great quality, or the 220, 240 electricity, or just our building's wiring is just like popping light bulbs. So we finally located light bulbs at this like electronics shop, and this shop has a wide assortment of light bulbs. And when you buy a light bulb, they take it out of the box and they put it in this contraption and like screw it in and light it just to prove to you that it worked when you bought it. So don't try to return it, which I think is kind of funny. And at that store, they have other sort of like, we bought our SodaStream there, sort of like lightly electronic kitchen supplies. Like maybe they have one toaster to choose from, and a few sort of like measuring cups, dish rack type of things. And there's a few stores like that, like kitchen supply, like cheap kitchen supply stuff. So that's where we get stuff for the kitchen. So all in all, the shopping experience here in Prague is totally different than I experienced in Los Angeles. It's a little bit complicated. You have to kind of know what to buy where. You have to be efficient, otherwise you're just going to be running around town. I don't do a lot of browsing. In America, that's half the fun of going to like a Target. Like I'm just going to cruise through the electronics section, see if I need to upgrade. I'm going to check out these magazines, maybe like see if I need a new pair of rollerblades. Oh, like, and food. I'll go get some food too. Here, I don't want to, it's smaller and it's just like you and the clerk. So you're not just like walking around like a shoplifter. You're just like, I came for this. That's why I'm here. So there's a lot less browsing. So when you come to this country, whether you're visiting or you're moving here, I hope that you can remember parts of this video and don't get frustrated when you can't find shampoo at the grocery store and you can't get drugs at the druggery. Tak, uvidíme se příští týden. Ahoj.